Welcome to Patty's Aquatics. Now in today's video, what I want to do is take you on a journey I followed the last couple months, and that is trying to breed these guys, my silver veil angels. Now I documented a little bit of it within my short videos a while back, showed them breeding, removing the eggs from the tank, and then I tried to get them to hatch and then raise those fry. And I want to show you the entire process that I followed this entire time, things that I learned, my successes, my failures, and share it all with you. So if you're ready, let's get started. I received this pair, silver veil angels, and they were breeding immediately. My problem was they kept breeding on the branches that are going up in my escape. And I needed to try to stop that so that I could actually take the eggs out. So what I did is I put these black, like ceramic coasters all over the tank. And it wasn't long that it worked. It was probably like 2 hours later, the female started cleaning off this coaster here. And I knew that it would not be much longer and I would be having some eggs I'd be able to pull out of that tank. Well, I was right. I came back and looked at the tank a little while later, and there we have it. There's eggs. Now, next thing to do is try to get them out of there. So my first attempt is to stick my hand in there and just try to pick it up. But that female was not having it. She was protecting those eggs with her life. So it's time for plan B. And that's my good old planting tweezers. So I just had to stick that down in there, and she really wasn't messing with me. She still wanted to get me, but I took them out there successfully and then into this container. So what I did is I propped the coaster up against the side of the container and put an air line underneath that rock just so it could stream a constant supply of air bubbles up over it to fan those eggs. Now this is approximately 60 hours later. As you can see, I had a lot of eggs that died off with the fungus. I did try to remove some of them in the beginning, but I decided just to leave it how it is and just see what happens. Then what I kind of noticed when I started looking closer, if you can tell, we have some wigglers in there. We do have life. Some of them have dropped off down to the bottom of this little container. So it is successfully hatching the eggs, which is awesome. Now, as the next few days progressed, I've noticed a lot of the wigglers that were hiding down at the bottom of the coaster, in front of it and behind. And then there was a lot that were actually still stuck to that coaster, just wiggling onto there. Now, like I said, I'd never bred these before, so I wasn't very familiar at the stages of the angelfish and how they progress through this fry stage of being hatched and such. So I did a lot of research online and asking questions to kind of see what could I expect from it. And like I said, it took a couple days for sure for them to be completely clear off of these coasters. And I knew once they were all at the bottom, then the next question is basically when are they going to start free swimming? And that I wasn't really 100% sure about. So then at this point, I've been noticing a lot of the fry are at the bottom of this container. There aren't many left on that coaster, and they're huddling together. And I thought it was kind of cool. If you zoom in and you can see that little center of it, I'm assuming that's the egg yolk, because I know that you can't feed them until they start free swimming, that they feed off of those egg yolks. So I knew I had to find some kind of filtration to put in here. So I made this little DIY filter. It was an old one I used to have that was filled with carbon that I never used. So I filled it with pea gravel to weigh it down and also give some beneficial bacteria surface to grow on. And then what I did was I took the air hose and I'll stick that into the center of it and then put the top back on it, which will weigh it all down, and it'll flow almost exactly like a sponge filter, and throw it into the tank. And then that was my filter for this container. And then I also added some guppy grass in there to also help with the biological filtration, just to kind of give it a jump start. So at this point then, I removed that coaster because they were all off of there. And then I noticed we have some free swimming fish. Now that they were free swimming, the next question is, what do I start feeding them? Well, I don't have baby brine shrimp, which I probably should have had. What I had was a rapashi powdered food that I used to use for some old fish I would feed when they were baby fry like that. So that's what I used. It was like a powder, and I would just put that into the water and see if they would eat that. And they were eating, and there were quite a few of them all swimming around, which I was very, very excited for. And then I also noticed that I had a bunch of detritus worms all over the bottom of this container. I thought this is awesome. I have a natural live food source for these things to eat on top of the powder. There's no way I'm going to lose any of these. But then I started to. Every time I went into the tank and looked, there was always a few more. It was hard to tell at first, but the numbers kept depleting and depleting. Before you knew it, I was down to only 4 fry. Yes, that's right, 4 out of all these. I really couldn't understand what was happening. From what I seen, they were eating. The water parameters are good. I tested them. That's when I decided to get a different food. So I got this Northfin fry starter that was given to me by them, and at this point now, I only had 2 left. So I started feeding them this, and they were eating it from what I could tell. And then a couple days later, all I had left was just one lone angelfish fry out of that huge batch. This one seemed to be the smartest of them all because I didn't have to feed him multiple times a day. His stomach was always full because, as you can see here, he figured out how to eat those detritus worms. And he was always fat. I still fed him once or twice a day, typically at least once. But he now is my lone survivor of all those angelfish. But he kept eating, and he kept eating, and he kept growing. Week after week after week, this guy was a survivor. As I got older, it was very interesting seeing how its body shaped from that little wiggly wiggler fry starting to actually look like an angelfish. From every time I videotaped him, he always had some type of difference to its body. Those fins all started to grow, which I found that to be very amazing. At this point, I knew he was big enough to start to go off on its own, to put him in his own tank. I didn't want to put him in with my existing angels because I felt he was a little small yet for that. So I had to figure out which tank I wanted to put him in, and also which tank I put him in is going to be easier for me to get him out eventually. So that's kind of where I left it. But I knew I wanted to try breeding these again now. My problem is that these guys, my pair of angels that I have, like to always lay their eggs on those branches, which is something I can't remove. So I moved the coasters around, and lo and behold, I got eggs again. So where there is failure, there's always a chance to redeem yourself and try it again, especially with these guys. So that's where we're at. But before I remove those eggs, first I wanted to put them in a different container. I absolutely hated this one. How magnified looked it was so hard to see things. So I want to put them in here. It's my little nano tank. It's not growing very well. It doesn't have great light. So I'm going to empty that thing completely and put the new eggs in there and try to hatch them out in there so I can actually see the eggs. But first I want to get this angelfish out of here and put him in this new container. So I got the little guy in the net, cute little booger. Now where I'm going to put him is my little 10-gallon tank with my little guppy project and my beta and a bunch of shrimp. This tank I feel will be the most successful tank to put him in for him to thrive, and it'll be the easiest for me to take him out once he gets a little bigger as well. Because I'm not going to keep him in here long term. It's just for him to be able to grow up, not get harassed, and to be able to thrive to that next stage of growth. And then I got the next tank all ready and cleaned out and ready for the next batch of eggs. I just need to say that on this channel, I don't hide anything. I'll show you my successes and I'll show you my failures. Would you consider this project a failure since I only got 1 out of them? I don't know, maybe, but it's also a success because I got one. But there's always a chance for redemption with these, like I said earlier. Like right here, pulling these out, this is another chance for me to be able to do it again, improve on what I did, and be more successful. So I'm about ready to put it in its new container, but I want to make sure there's no little hitchhiking snails on there, because I don't want them to potentially eat any of my eggs. So I made sure that it was free and clear of snails, and then I put them in there. And then the next process can happen. The next batch of angelfish fry that I can attempt to be able to raise. Now all that's left is to be able to sit back, watch, and learn, observe, and see if I could have learned anything from the last batch to take over to this one, and then so on and so forth down the road. Well, that was the entire process of raising my first batch ever of angelfish. I learned a lot from it, and I plan on taking everything I learned into this next one and trying to get a higher survival rate out of it. And that's the whole thing. I will never have to stop trying because these guys breed non-stop like I showed you. So I hope to get a higher survival rate every single time I try it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.